back to knit another piece on the 2023 dog sweater, this time the belly band.
Today's video we are working on the belly band and we are working on the collar. So we're going to set this all up and we're going to get knitting. So why is this so close to the machine? Well, that's because the belly band itself is only 7 stitches to the left and 7 stitches to the right. That is the entire width that we will be using for the belly band. We're going to start with the E-wrap and then knit 2 rows, and then we're going to do the swap to the ribber. So I'm going to start with that. E-wrap starts opposite side of the machine. This entire project, well, not project, this entire video has no increases or decreases. We just have transfers from the main bed to the ribber and then back up to the main bed. And we have 4 places where we need to place a yarn marker. So the reality is this is probably the easiest piece to knit. There's row 1. Bring it back out. Do row 2. All right. Now I'm going to reset my row counter. And we will consider this now is the cast on row, and now we'll start actually knitting after we transfer. I'm going to move my camera again. Okay, so now you can see what I'm doing. Because of this little wheel, you want to take the carriage all the way off the bed, put the connecting arm on. I guess I'll move the camera again. Okay, all the way off, put it on. Bring it back. Now, we will bring up the... Before I bring it all the way up, I need to put my yarn in. Yarn's in, adjusted, and up. All right. Now we transfer. We want to make sure that we do it the same way we did the original piece. So from the center, we leave the center 2 on the main bed. And we transfer every 2 stitches onto the ribber, leave 2 on the main, transfer 2 onto the ribber. Now for this one, we are actually going to leave the last one on the main bed. And that's only because it'll be really, really easy to seam it that way. Oops. My bad. Okay, I'm going to lower this one. Okay, before I lower it, I gotta disconnect the main. Here we have the cast on comb. And that's about 0. Pushing it up. Now, fun begins. Alrighty. Now that we have that on the bed, there are so few stitches, you can probably get away with 1 barrel weight. 1. But I think that if you try to only put on 1 barrel weight, these ends will just twist up and down and interfere with the proper operation of your carriage. So use two little ones to balance it. Putting one at 20, another one at 20. And now we are ready to begin. So let's go with row 1. We are at tension 6 and tension 6. That has not changed. Going across. All right. Oh, what did I do here? Huh. Okay, so I have a little bit of an issue where I only moved up one of these, but there should be 2. Oh boy. Okay, so I'm going to fix this. Okay, so that was kind of silly. So yeah, I forgot to leave 2 up on the top, and so things got a little, you know, out of sorts. And of course, we had some that didn't knit off, which is normal. So we will add the pressers. Taking a deep breath, and now we get to knit row number 2. As you can see, everything is knitting just fine. I don't need to have anything outward, so the pressers will work just fine for the next 46 rows. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit another 30 rows, and then we'll come back and we'll get ready to do the yarn marking for the armhole. All right, we're at row 36, 37, row 40, row 45, 46, 47, row 48. We're going to hang yarn markers on these 2 end needles. I love the contrast of this pink, so we're going to use the pink. This is going to be a little bit tricky. Sometimes you just got to do things backwards. Okay, so now we will knit some more rows here. 54 rows for this armhole. I think you get the idea. We're going to come back in 40 rows and do another yard mark. Okay, we're at row 93. We have 10 rows to go before our next yarn mark. So that's 4, 5, 8 more rows. 6, 7, 8, 9. Row 100, 101, 102, 103. Yarn mark again. All right, now we're going to finish the piece. Yeah, good enough. We have 46 more rows at row 105. So this is row 110. We have 41 more rows to knit. So I am going to pause the video and we'll come back when we have 10 rows left. And we're back at row 141. We have 10 rows left to knit. Row 147, 4 more rows. And this is our last row at row 151. We will now transfer all the stitches up and remove on waste yarn. Move these all forward. Disconnect the ribber. I guess you can't see what I'm doing. 1 second, please. Okay. Now we're taking off the connecting arm and the pressers. Removing the yarn. Going back to the brush. All right. Now we need to cut the yarn and we need to add the waste yarn. All right, I'm going to leave a little bit of a yarn tail. Put this yarn away and grab our fun yarn. My goodness. 10. Okay. I'm gonna latch tool this off. And then we will do something completely different. Okay, here we go with the latch tooling. And that completes the piece. Now this piece seems extremely long. We have had it weighed down quite a bit. So it's actually going to shrink up to its actual size after it is cleaned. So I'm not worried at all about how it's doing its magic. I just have to trust the science. So I'm trusting the science on this one. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring out our other 2 colors of yarn. And we're actually going to knit the collar. And then we will move the piece onto the collar. However, we do need to do a little bit of sewing before we can do the knitting. So we need to sew this piece, so from the end to the last yarn mark, so from the last row, so row 151, all the way down to that last yarn mark needs to be sewn onto this piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rehang this half of our front, which is actually the back. So we're going to hang what is the shoulder seam back on the machine so that we can stitch it up. Now, one of the first questions that you're going to ask in your brain is, how do I know which end is which? Well, the beauty of this project is it's ribbing. It doesn't matter. So I'm just going to put these shoulder seam stitches back on the machine. I chose the right-hand side, and I know it's the right-hand side because of the waste yarn stitches being purls that are facing me. So we'll come back when I have that all the way back on the machine. So I have around 31 stitches on the bed. Now I'm going to take that first So it looks like I actually put that on backwards. Well, I'm just going to go with it. So, purl side to me, I will have to make sure that I do it the same way with both when it gets to that point. So, okay. So what I'm going to do is, this is the knit side. So I'm going to hang the knit side so that I have wrong sides together. My bad, I just don't feel like rehanging it right now. Okay. I want to take the long stitch here. So I could take the stitch underneath, or I can take the stitch above, or I can take the purl, because that's a purl bump. I'm going to take the purl bump and I'm going to hang it on the end. Now I'm just going to ease all of these stitches over this entire piece. I start with just random, around center, and it works. Hard to describe. I'll do knits and purls onto these empty needles. I don't know if you just caught that, but how I find a purl bump. I go into the long stitch and then I turn it around and it goes into the purl bump. It's kind of a magic thing. There we go. So you have the choice of two different methods. You can hand stitch this, or you can manually pull the needles back, or you can try tension 10 and then latch tool it. I prefer manually stitching it. That way you get a more flexible stitch. And watch your yarn tails to make sure nothing gets tangled on your gate pegs. So I push that all back in. As you can see, this one yarn mark is tangling itself. And now we're all safe. Dropping the yarn tail down. Manually stitching. Pushing it all the way back to A position. When I latch this up, it will be a very solid seam, but it'll also be flexible. I do not weigh this down. That way there's no extra pressure on this yarn. Sorry, didn't mean to graze that. And there you go. You want a yarn tail that's just big enough that you can weave it in when we do the sleeves. Now you want to hold it with your hand and pull it down. Latch tool. And latch tool it off. I'm going to go from the neckline down to the sleeve. And I'll try and make sure that I do this for both sides. If you wanted to make this visible on the outside of the piece as a artistic element, that would be fine as well. Just keep that in mind that you do both sides the same. You could do it in a contrasting yarn to make it look like you sewed it backwards, accidentally on purpose. This is the last one. Drawing it through. All right. Stitch through. So now we have the belly band is connected to the front. I know it makes absolutely no sense. So this is the neckline, 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 and this will actually go around the front of the dog to the chest. We're going to figure out our collar now, and then we will knit the collar.
Our next video will be the collar.